Hello, everybody. Welcome to another week of data. Before I begin, I sent out a message. For feedback, I've been debating back and forth how best to do feedback in this class from homework. And as much as I try to type out an answer, I feel like it's clunky and not good feedback. So I've implemented video feedback. So I tried that with the chapter 6 part 2 homework assignment. So please watch that feedback and let me know what you think. I think it's good. I think it's more useful to have me going through the code and just giving you my thoughts as I go through it, rather than typing out things. That way you can rewatch them and see what I'm doing. So if anybody's watched those already, share if you like them or not. But I think that's how I'm going to be doing feedback, especially as this class gets more and more technical. That'll be better to help with the understanding. So check your ReggieNet to see. I've got a link. It's individualized to every student. So and they go from like 3 minutes to 10 minutes. And if you got a 10-minute one, I'm sorry. Sometimes I go off on tangents, but that's good. It's good stuff, and it's a good review in there. So anyway, today I was going to have a Power BI component, but I've postponed that until Wednesday. I thought back about the assignments and some of the stuff I've seen in the tests, and I just wanted to kind of recenter things in this class and talk through things more instead of just doing something, assigning something, and then moving on. So we're going to kind of take all the concepts that we've talked about already and this level set today. I know some people are still catching up, so that'll allow us to level set, and then we'll move on from a good foundation. So I'm going to talk about a few concepts of treating data based on some things that I've seen. And so today's class is not tied to like a chapter from a book or anything. This is just kind of to refocus us all. There will be an assignment out of today's class, which will be due next Monday, and it's going to be about treating data. So who's pumped up? All right.
Woot woot.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, full speed ahead. All right. So bingo bango. Let's look at data treatment. Let me share my screen here. My kids just got a Nintendo Switch, so they're fighting over it upstairs right now. Okay, so share. All right, well, that's MySQL. Okay, so PowerPoint. I've got, I made this PowerPoint for today's class. This is going to be recorded and put onto YouTube. The advantage being a class is that we're able to communicate and you're able to ask whatever questions you have that are top of mind. So definitely feel free to stop me and ask any questions that you have for today's class. So we're going to be refining our SQL a little bit. So I want to start off by saying the expectations for this class, you're not expected to be able to rattle off code. Like when you're, and I've said this a couple times and I'll keep saying it, when you're doing this as a marketing analyst or a business analyst or whatever you do after ISU, if you need to use SQL code, it's totally normal. It would be abnormal if you were able just to sit down and type it all out. So I'm not doing my goal is not to do rote memorization of code in this class. It's to be able to apply different concepts and think about what your boss is asking of you or your client or whoever the audience is. Think about what they're asking and find that data. So that's our goal in this class. And today we're going to talk about treating the data, which will help us solve those problems. And you should be prepared to know what is possible to do with SQL and with data management. And that's the goal here in this class. So you know what you can do, and you'll be equipped to be able to do that after doing the things that we do in this class. So at this point, you should feel comfortable because you've created a cloud account, you've gotten in there, you've manipulated data, you've inserted things into tables. We're going to start creating tables and creating schemas. We're going to create a data mart soon, which is very neat. And you know that you're able to do these things. And what we cover in class is going to be like 20% of what you're able to do. Actually, probably even less than that, because there's just so much that you can do with SQL. But you should be confident that you can accomplish things. So we're not preparing SQL coders in this class, but problem solvers. And everyone's done really well so far with that. So first thing from the homework, I noticed a lot the scale problem, and it's and I noticed it because it's a problem that exists in the data, and it's nobody's fault. It's just how the data is. So you'll hear this feedback from the homework assignment where I talk about you've got the scale in ascending order. And if you don't remember what I'm talking about this, darn it, this, yeah, this one where you're getting the product scale from your classic models data set, and you're getting us all the possible product scales in ascending order. And then what's the problem with this data set? If anyone could tell me what the problem with this ascending order is. Anybody at all? We've got
like in the data output.
Yeah, in the data output. Yeah.
And the problem is that it goes from 700 to 72.
Yeah.
And that should be reversed.
Nailed it. Yeah. So exactly. And the reason why is because of how it's stored in here. It's SQL is interpreting that as like a decimal. So 1.700. So if this was actually 730, it would actually be in the correct order, but for the wrong reason. It would just happen to be in that order. And I didn't plan on this example kind of manifesting itself, but it did. And I'm happy it did because this is something that I ran into every 3 weeks at State Farm. We had a process where we were getting data from SAS, and the way that it was formatted, it was insurance liability limits data, and it was formatted like 10,000 for bodily injury and 10,000 for property damage, and then it was 100,000 and 100,000, and then there was another option that was 25,000. So, and it would be in this order because it was it would interpret it as 1.0, 1.0, 2.5, and so it would be really it would just be really frustrating. And so what we do is we'd run the SAS code, we'd export it to Excel, fix it, and then run the report. And sometimes you forget to do that. It adds a little bottleneck in the system, but someone, it wasn't me, I'd love to take credit for it, but someone realized in the SAS code where they were using SQL to pull it from the State Farm data lake that had all this data, they just created a treatment for that data to turn it into a bucketed format. And there was another way to do it as well, where you could just take the bodily injury number and then the property damage number separately and come up with a calculus to figure out what order it should be in. So, and that made it so you didn't have to do that extra step of exporting to Excel, treating the data there, and then resubmitting it, because that led to inaccuracy. It's sloppy. It's not good. So I love that example. And we're going to talk about a way to fix that here. So this, again, this lecture will be recorded and on YouTube. And if I have you do this an assignment, I'm going to link to this exact point. Hopefully I can sync it up to that, which would be cool. So how do we do it? Well, there's a couple ways to do it. One, you can just use a function called substring. Can anyone tell me, is anyone familiar with SQL or substring, or maybe in a different programming language like VBA or R, they've used substring?
Substring I use a lot in JavaScript.
Yeah, JavaScript, perfect. Okay, so what does it do, Aaron?
For substring, I'm assuming talking about the one where it takes it from the beginning. So it takes it from, like, you give it a string and then you say from what position you want to start and then how many characters you want to go, and it takes that string and takes it out.
Yeah, perfect. So if we had ISU marketing rules. Okay, so say this is a string, and then you wanted to get out of that string just the word market. How would you write your substring syntax?
You would usually declare variable, so like whatever it is for the string, and then you'd have that, and then I'm not sure what it is in here. It'd be like substring in parentheses,
Yep.
whatever you're doing, and then it'd be comma the starting spot where you want to go, which it starts at 0 unless SQL is different.
Yeah, SQL is different.
Is that 1?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and where are we pulling that out of?
ISU marketing rule, this string right here.
Okay, so then it'd be 5 and then comma 3 for getting 3 characters out.
Perfect. All right, so that's it. So in this case, well, let me make this right for the example. This is a defined string that we have, but if you're pointing to like a attribute or a column and you had a column name in here, and we did this kind of writing, column ISU, this would take every value that's in that column, and it would start at the 5th position and go 3 positions out. So you wouldn't be able to write a hard and fast rule like for ISU market rules, but for something like product scale, we could, because that is, and actually it does start at 0, Aaron, I was wrong about that. It starts, all of these are 1 to something, so we know it's a consistent pattern how the values in that column are. So we know that we can always start at the 3rd position. And here I just wrote 50 because we can go 50 out. We could go even farther out if we wanted to. You're not going to have anything that big. You'd probably be safe doing just 10 out. But what that's doing is saying if you had a substring that was 1 to 7,000 or 700, we'll start at position 3 and we'll go up to 50 over. So that's going to 1, 2, 3, starting here, and it'll go up to this far over and return that. So it returns 700 from here. And you can see I've written that logic in here, and here's the value that comes back from that. Are there any questions on what this does, what substring is doing here for us? Cool. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if this is going to work, but we can give this a try. I can go in here and actually do this and see if this works here. And I'm hoping it shows. SU marketing rules. It'll just say marketing a bunch of times in here. Yeah. Oh no. There we go. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And I would want to name it as string. Okay. So are there any questions on substring? I didn't see any thumbs up or hands up or anything.
Just out of curiosity with substrings in here, is there, so in JavaScript, there's a index of where you can find the first instance of a character. Can you do that in SQL?
Yeah, you can do that. So that's a really good question, Aaron. So you could, in this case, you would look for, what would you look for, Aaron?
So in this case, I would look for, what was it? Like, was it an underscore between them?
Well, there's a colon in here.
Okay.
And
Oh, in this case, yeah, colon.
yeah. Oh, okay. You were thinking of the ISU marketing. Yeah. So for the
Yeah.
product scale, sorry, miscommunication on my end. Yeah, you'd look for the colon, and that would be effective if there is, I mean, if the starting point is variable. So you would find
Yeah, and I guess,
the index of, and then use that here. Is that
yeah, and
as
I
your
was thinking
starting
about
point?
that more as like the ISU marketing rules. Like if there was variable lengths in the ISU part, like there was different parts in there, then that would make your substring consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so if you can find data that is set up, it's like structured that way to find a consistent thing that you can look for, that's awesome. You're not always gonna have that, but you can. But if you can find it, that'll help you out a lot. I don't have an example prepared for that for this class, but I will do that because that is a powerful tool to use. So
Yeah, I had to do it at work, so that's why I brought it up.
yeah, yeah, JavaScript is fun. So now with this, you'll see that the order is still not right. So there's still some more things that we're gonna have to do with this data to get this to order correctly. Because even though it looks like a number now, it's still not. So and can somebody else point out what our next step would be? You don't have to tell me what to do, but what you don't have to tell me exactly what to do, but what are we gonna need to do to get this to order correctly? So we fixed how it appears, but we're still doing order by. Does that fix what we're doing our order by? So it doesn't. I'll give you that. It doesn't fix what we're doing our ordering by. We're still using the product scale. We're still using the well, you know what? I'll just bring that out. We're still ordering by this, and we don't want to. We want to order by this. So is it as simple as just doing this and actually ordering by this new substring? Well, no, it's not, because it's doing it by a string instead of numerically. So it's still thinking that 7.0 is less than 7.2. So what we need to do is we do a convert, and we're going to convert it from that string to an actual number, and we're doing it as an unsigned integer. So what's important here is that you do not need to know how to freehand type this out and convert something to a number. So if you do have apprehension about that, don't, because you don't need to know how to freehand do it. You need to know that you need to search Google for how to convert a string into an integer. convert string to integer in my SQL. So the reason why this is important is because if you just search for convert string to integer, integer SQL, it's going to give you possibly something called cast, which you can't do in MySQL, or it doesn't work the same as it does in other examples. This is a case where MySQL acts differently than other DBMSs. So you want to specify what DBMS you're working in as much as possible when you're doing these Google searches. But you just need to know what to Google to find the answer and know that you can make this conversion. So if you're looking at this, you think, how do I make sure that the 700 appears in the right order with the 72? Well, it's currently a string. I need to make it an integer. So you search for that, you figure out how to do that, and you find this code somewhere that somebody 10 years ago figured out how to do, and you bring it over into your data model, whatever you're building. So who out there has apprehension about thinking you have to memorize SQL, or do you have a good understanding that that's not the expectation?
No, I understand that. A lot of this is, I mean, pretty much all of it is just new to me. So I'm just kind of, soaking in, trying to learn.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Soak it in. Get this marinade in this, because this is good stuff and this will help you a lot. So yeah, just knowing what's possible and that you can do it is good. So awesome. All right. So that's one data treatment we can do. So how to clean that up. Okay, that's one way. Aaron, I'll get index of, because that's a good example. I'm gonna have to create a data set that uses that, but that's good. Judgment calls on what to include. So this is some feedback I gave on the assignment. For one of the questions, I ask really literal questions, and I'm doing it from the perspective of like your boss asking you a question on something. And when I think of this, gosh, okay. Sorry, I got to find the right. I had this all set up and then I've gotten myself out of order. So when so I'm in the Air Force National Guard, and we had an assignment once where we went to Monterey, California, which was awesome. Monterey was beautiful, but we worked with the Army. And so I don't know if any of you were in the Army. So I mean, no offense at all. The Army people are awesome, but working with them can be kind of difficult. And one example that I had was there are these mountains, and my job then was I was a radio guy. So I needed to set up a radio mast on a mountain. And so I went to the Army guy and I said, listen, I need a key to get to this building up on this mountain. I didn't know, I've never been there before. All I knew is I had this coordinate of where this building was, and I needed the key to get to it. So the Army guy said, no problem. Here's the key. You're on your way. So I drove 45 minutes up, got all the way up there, and I had the key to the building. But what the Army guy did not give me was the key to the fence around the building. And so I was like, what a waste of my time. Like I drove 45 minutes out here. I have to go all the way back and then ask for the key to the fence to go all the way up. So I relate that to SQL, and you're going to get questions from your boss or a coworker or a client or whoever, and they're going to ask for something specific. And it's if all you did was give them that answer back, well, you're easily automatable at that point. But if you can provide context or think about what they're looking for, and definitely provide them with what they ask for, but also additional things, that is going to help you professionally when you're wading through this data. You're going to have all this data, and don't just try to answer literally what they asked you. I mean, definitely do that, and don't be condescending like, oh, you actually want this. Like that, listen to what they're saying and think about what more do they want. Ask them, are you looking for this or are you looking for this? Because there's going to be a lot of nuance with the data, and they're not going to really they're not going to understand necessarily that nuance. So in this example from the homework assignment, I asked for the all the items, the products where the quantity in stock was greater than 5,000. So first thing we need to do greater than or equal to. So I asked for that. And so if you gave me this list, that's exactly what I asked for, and that's good. But going forward, I'm going to start expecting some more context around that. And don't overthink it at all. And if it's something like the scale question, literally all I needed was the scales. I didn't need additional data. And in fact, additional data would make it so the distinct wouldn't work. But in this case, I'm looking for all the product names where the quantity in stock is over 5,000. So you could deduce from that it would be that if you gave me this list, try to think about what my very next question would be. So if I ask for a list of all the products where the number of items that we have in stock are over 5,000, and you gave me this list back, what do you think my first question back would be? Now, there's no wrong answers. This is a safe place to give an answer that if you're worried about being wrong, don't worry about it.
What was the question again? Sorry.
If I was the boss and I asked you for a list of all the products from our model company where we had more than 5,000 items in stock, and you gave me that list, what do you think my next question would be?
What might be the
how
stock
many
of
of
each
those?
car?
Exactly. Yeah, well, stop. Wait, I heard two things. One was what stock number?
Yeah, how much is in stock for each one of them?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because I'm in the frame of mind of looking for a number, because there is a specific number. So I'm just going to add that quantity in stock. Cool. All right, now I was going to ask this next, but I already fixed it. It looks like, yeah, you'd want to order it by quantity in stock, and maybe instead of ascending, you might want to provide it additionally with a descending view. You might not. I mean, I think in the homework I asked for ascending specifically, but yeah, that would be kind of thinking through what your client or whoever you're talking to is asking for. Now, this was not expected at all, but I'm going to have a video tonight showing you how to do more advanced math with this. What you could do next, and again, I'm not going to do this right now in class. I'm going to make an additional video for this. You could take the amount that's in stock and well, I guess I'll stop there. Could anybody think about where I'm going with this? You have these numbers of how much is in stock. What additional context could I then provide?
Could you like compare to sales or something like that?
You could look at, yeah, so you're on the right track. Yeah, you could, all these answers are right because you can do all of these things. You could go in and you could look at, let's just look at everything that's in here. You could look at the total value of like the MSRP. You could look at the MSRP of what's in stock. And so you could put a value on that because maybe, you could have 5,000 in stock of the Queen Mary, but it's cost half as much as this Manhattan Express. So that's additional that's even more context that you're providing for your boss or your client. So instead of just answering and giving them a list of products, you are walking them through what they would be looking for anyway. And that gets noticed. People notice that, and they will start coming to you for answers instead of another analyst where they're like, okay, now can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And it's this back and forth that they don't want to have. So professionally, that's how you're going to provide value as a data analyst or marketing analyst, anticipating those questions. So yeah, you could look at, let's just brainstorm. So yeah, you could look at sale, MSRP. What else could we do with the data that we have here?
I would assume that product code is the foreign key to order details. So I would add that in there so they could look up correlating info.
Yeah, and I think you did. I think in your assignment, Aaron, you did just that. So you added that column, which is cool. And so you could find like average number ordered. There are like 100 different things you could do with this data. And yeah, if you had product code as your foreign key, you could start using things in the order details table. So, I mean, it can be overwhelming to just think through all the different things that you could do, but providing additional context like that while answering their original question and adding additional things without being overwhelming, that's a really powerful way to help your career when you leave here. So think about that, I guess, as you're answering these questions. And I think for this class, I'll prompt you. I will say, I'm looking for more than what I'm asking for. So you're not just trying to exhaust all of your options for just a basic question. So I'm aware that you could have a tendency to do that. So I'm going to trigger you that I'm looking for more than what I'm asking for. So cool. Does that make sense to everybody, what we just talked about? Cool. Okay. So another thing that you could do with this data, if you wanted to visualize this in Power BI and you wanted to have a column chart that's bucketed instead of having like a crazy column chart that's jutting all around. If you wanted to bucket it into groups of like 1,000 of quantity in stock, you can do that. And you can do that with a case statement. And let's see here. And I think case statements are something, Aaron, that I don't think JavaScript has case statements. I think you have to use like if or get creative with your if statements, but
They have case statements, but they're kind of a pain.
okay. All right.
It's like really annoying to use. So yeah, if else is what you usually use.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll it's a little easier in my opinion, or it's fairly easy in SQL. So what we're going to do here is we have the quantity in stock here, and I'm going to bucket this into groups of either under 5,000 or it's 5,001 to 6,000 or 6,001 to 7,000 or over 7,000. And I just picked this for an example. It can be whatever grouping that you feel is appropriate. But what this does is I've created an attribute, and so I've got product name, which is this attribute right here, quantity in stock, which is this attribute, and those are ones that just exist in the table. And then I'm creating an attribute called quantity text where I name that whatever you want to name it. You do it and it will appear as the name. So you name it, and you can see here, it fits within our rules that, okay, now the Queen Mary is 5,001 to 6,000. So you can, so this is nice because it makes your data manipulation easier. If this is a procedure that you run a lot, you can just copy this into Excel. Let me bring this over. And then you can filter on, you can filter in these groups instead of selecting these. So that's really handy. It's useful. And it's also useful for Power BI because you've already kind of treated the data that you're feeding into Power BI. So the case statement is you're declaring that there's a case and you're putting the features that go into it. And you can just have a when and else. That can be all that you have. See, with MySQL, if you don't even put an else, it should give you a null. Yeah, gives you a null if you don't fully define everything that you're doing. But you can have as many when statements. I think there is a limit, but I don't know what that is. I think you could have a lot of when statements, and I've never hit a limit of it. And then you just cap it off with a all else do something. So this is another way that you can treat data to make it easier to analyze in a data model and a visualization software, or just looking at your results here. Are there any questions on the case statement right now? We'll have more in-depth examples as they're required for an assignment or anything.
I will say this is a lot more cases, and this are a lot more simple than JavaScript.
Yeah, some people hate JavaScript. I liked it. I thought JavaScript was fun, but I don't know. So yeah, cool. And let's see. So that is case statements. So greater than or equal to. This is something. This is minor, but I just noticed this a lot in the assignment. Like most people just put greater than. But if you're asking specifically for 6,000 or greater or 5,000 or greater, you need to include the equals to, so that it's greater than or less than or equal to whatever you're looking for. Or you could get creative. One student put that, and so it's still correct. And that's just a different way to do it. But yeah, greater than or less than, unless you include the equals, is truly greater than or less than. If you include the equals, then it's greater than or equal to. Let's see, case statements. Yeah, I got that. All right, so kind of pivoting off of what we just talked about by binning or bucketing these things. There's no right or wrong place to do that kind of treatment work. I will say try to pick one and go with it. And what I mean by that is you've got Power BI as your visualization software, and you can do bucketing with DAX programming language in Power BI. You can do those treatments in Power BI, or you can do them in SQL. Like you can clean these and create a table that has this clean data in it, and then just feed it to Power BI. And all Power BI does is ingest that data, and it's clean and it's nice. Or you can give it dirty data, and then in Power BI, you clean it up however you want it to be. What I will say is if you have a data set in MySQL that's feeding like 50 different Power BI reports, if you do all of this treatment in MySQL and you create these bins and you go in here and you convert this to be 5,500, you change a setting in here, what have you just done to all 50 of those Power BI reports? So if you have, no, I'm not good with paint, but let's try this. Okay, so, and I guess I might not be clear with what I'm asking. If you have MySQL, which is this guy, and you've got a bunch of reports, and say these are all Power BI reports, and you're doing, you do like data treatment in MySQL. So that means case statements, substring action conversions, math equations, and many other things. So if you're doing all of that in your MySQL database, and then it's feeding all of these Power BI reports, if you tweak the math equation in your MySQL database, what are you doing to all of these Power BI reports?
You tweak them whenever you change the MySQL.
Yeah, you're messing with whatever output these are all producing. So that's either, I mean, that's either good or bad, and it really depends on what's going on in your organization. So you kind of have to know what their philosophy is. Hold on, my daughter is throwing something upstairs. She's having a tantrum, so 1 second. All right, all is well. Okay, so that will trickle down to every report, and that's either a good thing or a bad thing. And there is no right or wrong answer with the best way to do this for your organization. But what are some positives of having relationships set up that way?
Set up which way?
Set up so that you do all of these data treatments in MySQL instead of doing them individually in Power BI. What are some of the advantages of that?
You don't have to do it once rather than 5 separate times.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And MySQL first. Once, okay, what's another thing? Any other ideas spring to mind? What about your consistency with the reports? Are you, yeah, I mean, you're ensuring that that you're using the same like bucketing standards or the same nomenclature. You're not dealing with things that are named almost identically but slightly off, which is annoying. Or you could have things that are just totally out of date. So, but the disadvantages of that are, what's a disadvantage of doing treatments in MySQL versus Power BI?
You could have a certain Power BI table that has data specifically tailored to it, and if you change it in MySQL, then it can mess up that one specific table or something.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. If you have a Power BI table, and this is not just specific to Power BI, is the Tableau or SAS Visual Analytics, whatever visualization program you have, but I'll say Power BI or PBI, PBI table, feeding off impacted. Yeah. A single source of failure, a single point of failure. If you mess up, if you mess one thing up, it messes everything up. That's another risk factor. Loss of control. I think some people like to have control over their reports and what they're doing, and you've kind of stepped on their toes by doing that, which you're gonna learn. Might be something sensitive that you need to keep in mind. So yeah, and sometimes you have a mix of this, and you can have a mixed approach, which gets sloppy as well because you don't remember where you need to update something. If you've got custom code in here and custom code in here, and an update happens, well, you need to figure out where you need to update it. So documentation becomes important. But I'm going to show you the tools on how to make modifications both in MySQL and in Power BI. And this is what I'm talking about right now is less for this class and more for when you get out there and you're working. Just because you can modify something in a local report or in the MySQL database doesn't mean that's the best way to do it. You need to figure out what the standard of practice is at the company that you're at, and try to conform with that. So there are different philosophies on this, and I'm not going to say there's a right or wrong way. I prefer doing things in MySQL in the master database and having it flow through, but that's my personal choice. I don't know, Aaron, when you're building what you're doing, have you run into this problem at all, or is it just kind of one streamlined thing?
So like for where I'm at right now, there's basically like master tables that house a lot of the data, and then I'm importing a lot of that and then manipulating it on my end to kind of get what I want out of it, because a lot, like the entire company runs off of those tables, so I don't mess with those and I just do what I need to with them.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, and we're going to be talking in 2 weeks about data marts, and that's like that's getting data from the master source and then having a little data mart that you can modify things with. So we'll talk more about the structure then, but just wanted to touch base on that in today's class. So kind of a debate on binning, cleaning, formatting with SQL versus Power BI. No real winner. It's up to the company that you join. So the homework from tonight's class. We haven't learned anything like really new here. We've just kind of gone over some existing concepts, talked about the case statement or using things like substring. But getting you familiar with the concept that you can manipulate this data when you're doing these queries, and you're going to have an assignment where you're doing some of these manipulations. And it's going to be the same kind of format where I show you how I do it. And I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to be manipulating something differently, but you'll need to take kind of the concept of what I'm doing and tweak it and apply it to whatever question I'm asking you. So you're either going to be converting numbers, bucketing or binning, or doing some other type of data treatment. Some math, there's going to be a math component where you're calculating like profit or how much potential profit is out there in not storage, but yeah, storage in inventory. And then after you submit that assignment, I'm going to be giving feedback in video format where I'm just walking through each step or each question and just talking about different things you could do, or tips or tricks that I have, or if you get something wrong, like what you got wrong. So that's for tonight's class. And then Wednesday's class is going to be, normally that's kind of like a troubleshooting day, but I'm going to make Wednesday's class, that's going to be like you're going to be split into 3 teams, and you are going to be solving I'm going to be asking you a question, and you're going to be giving me an answer in your groups. So it's sort of like Jeopardy, but activity based. So it should be super fun. I think it's going to be super fun. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm building that, but I'm going to get the homework posted tomorrow morning, and I'm going to have videos, and then the feedback's going to be in video format when you're complete. So any questions, broad-based questions about stuff we talked about tonight? Cool. Okay. Please check that feedback I gave you on the homework assignment when you get a chance, and let me know if you like that format, because I'm stoked about it. But if it doesn't work for you, if you'd rather have it written out, then let me know that too, and I can tailor it to what you're looking for. But I think it should be a good improvement. So other than that, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.